The story begins when a group of K9 German Shepherds is training in a snow-covered forest in a remote wildlife reserve. On a cold, snowy day, the forest is blanketed in a thick layer of white, giving it a surreal, ethereal look. The K9s are performing a routine training exercise, but no one could have anticipated that in a fleeting moment of distraction from their handler, a horrifying event would unfold. The discovery of a forest ranger left in a life-threatening condition. The main character of the story is Jack Thompson, an experienced forest ranger who has dedicated his life to protecting the Bitter Creek National Reserve in Wyoming. Jack is not just a ranger, he is also a protector of wildlife, an advocate against poaching, and someone who ensures the safety of brave hikers who venture into this wilderness. However, on one fateful day, Jack became the victim of a sinister plot. While patrolling, Jack unknowingly stumbles upon a group of people attempting to illegally exploit the reserve. These greedy individuals were willing to do anything to seize land, hunt wild animals, and exploit natural resources. When Jack refused to comply with their demands, they not only attacked him, but also chained him to a tree deep within the forest, leaving him to die from the cold. However, Jack's fate was not meant to end there. Meanwhile, the K9 unit, with Max leading the way, is performing its training nearby. Max is a large, strong German Shepherd that has undergone years of training under expert handlers. Among the K9s, Max stands out for his intelligence, bravery, and ability to perform in high-pressure situations. He is not just a skilled fighter, but also a loyal companion, always ready to sacrifice for his team and those he cares about. On a snow-heavy day, while the K9s are training, the handler momentarily loses focus. In just a few seconds, the dogs stray from their handler and begin to follow their instincts. Instead of turning back to find their handler, Max and the other K9s sense something unusual in the air and decide to venture deeper into the forest. It's as if they can feel that something critical is happening, and they cannot ignore it. As the K9s continue their search, they discover an unconscious man chained to a tree. It is Jack Thompson. His body is bloodied, his hands bound to the tree, and his face covered in blood, snow, and pain. He has been left for dead, unable to survive, but instead of fleeing or acting aimlessly, Max and the others spring into action immediately. Max, with his sharp instincts and training, senses the danger Jack is in and knows there is no time to waste. He steps forward and looks directly into Jack's eyes, as if to tell him that they will not leave him alone. The other K9s quickly surround the area, moving with a precision that no one could have expected. One dog begins sniffing for the chain's lock, while another runs around searching for help. The K9s do not bark or make noise. Instead, they act with precision and purpose. These are not dogs and aimlessly searching for food or playing, but true warriors with a clear objective and an unwavering commitment to their mission. While Max and the other K9s continue their work, Jack is slowly losing consciousness. He can hear the barking, but his mind is foggy, and he cannot be sure if it's a dream or reality. But when Max sits down in front of him, not barking but simply staring him in the eyes, Jack feels a strange surge of strength. He recalls the hours of training, remembering how Max always stood by his side through every challenge. Despite his pain, Jack looks into Max's eyes, filled with unwavering determination and unconditional loyalty. As Max and the other K9s continue their efforts, they dig through the snow and find the chain's lock, breaking Jack's confinement. The K9s keep barking, as if calling for help. Along with their calls, the sounds of footsteps and human voices slowly draw nearer. Before long, the rescue team arrives in time, bringing the salvation Jack never thought he would receive. As the light from the rescue team shines on them, Max remains steadfast by Jack's side, never leaving. The arrival of the rescue team marks the end of a rescue mission that only K9s like Max could have executed. Jack, now regaining consciousness, is fortunate to have survived, thanks to the loyalty and determination of the canines. Max, more than just a canine, is a true companion, a protector who never strays, even in the most perilous moments. This story is not just about a rescue, but also a lesson in loyalty, bravery, and the strength of the bond between humans and animals. The canines didn't just save Jack, they proved that sometimes it is the creatures we least expect who can do the most unimaginable things. And in the most critical moments, they are the ones who truly save us. Max, the largest German shepherd in the canine unit, with his thick fur covered in white snow, took the first step into the freezing forest, where no one could imagine the harshness of the environment. The surroundings were blanketed in a misty, silent layer of snow, as if the whole world had come to a halt. Every step Max took was a calculated strategy, a step full of determination, as though this dog knew that the life of a man depended on him and his teammates. Max's instincts proved correct when he led the canine team deeper into the forest, away from the main path, towards a direction no one could have anticipated. As the canine team ventured deeper into the forest, the surroundings seemed to grow even more mysterious and suffocating. The sounds, the light, and the signs of the outside world disappeared. The entire forest seemed to be covered by a deadly silence. Max led the way, always sniffing the air, his eyes sharp and focused with every step, as if searching for something important that the other dogs couldn't sense. And then, as if by some strange magic, he found the sign he needed. A cold gust of air, something unusual in the atmosphere, a sign, a change in space that only Max could recognize. The other canines, though still moving in formation, could sense the difference in the air. They sped up, noses lowered, eyes sharp, never taking their gaze off the ground. They didn't bark, they didn't make noise. Instead, they moved silently, following Max's lead. It was a perfect march. The coordination of these canines was like a professional army. Each dog had a clear mission, and there was no room for mistakes. This wasn't by chance, it was a result of intense training, unwavering loyalty, and the determination to save a life. One of the smaller dogs detected the first clue. It stopped, sniffed the ground, and immediately began digging, searching for something hidden beneath the thick snow. Within minutes, the dog discovered the lock of the chain and gently nipped at it, pulling it out. At that moment, Max took a step forward, standing tall in front of Jack Thompson, the forest ranger, who was still half conscious, gasping for breath in the bone-chilling cold of winter. Max did not bark. There was no sound at all. Just the silence of Max and the deep gaze full of understanding and loyalty that no one could ever imagine. Jack could hardly believe his eyes, though his vision was fading from pain and cold. He could only feel the cold, the difficulty of breathing. But then, when he looked into Max's bright eyes, he realized he was no longer alone. The presence of Max was like a ray of hope in the darkness. Jack tried to say something, but his throat was constricted. He could only whisper, "Good boy, guys." Bam! The other canines didn't stand still. One of them started sniffing around the tree, and upon finding the sign of the chain, it began barking, not out of fear, but because it knew there was a task to complete. The barking didn't stop, as if calling for salvation. Max once again stepped forward, approaching the chain. He looked at the lock and then glanced back at Jack, as if confirming something important. Then suddenly, as though receiving an unspoken signal, Max abruptly stopped and barked sharply. Max's bark echoed through the trees, slicing through the cold snow and breaking the silence. Within moments, distant footsteps began to sound, the urgent calls of rescuers drawing near. Max had succeeded, guiding them closer to Jack. The rescue was not just an action of the canines, but a miracle, a magical combination of instinct, training, and loyalty. As the rescue team neared, Jack could only look at Max, his eyes filled with tears of emotion. He knew that it was Max who had saved him, and not just a rescue dog, but a loyal companion who had never abandoned him in his most desperate hours. The other canines also stood around without any sign of exhaustion or fear, simply completing their mission. Max stood firm in front of Jack, not moving until he was completely safe. The tension and anticipation from the moment Max's bark echoed to the moment the rescue team arrived is something that words cannot fully describe. Max was not just a rescue dog, he was a companion, a protector, and an essential part of Jack's life. In that moment, Jack realized that sometimes it is the creatures who cannot speak that are the ones who save us in situations we thought impossible to survive. But this was not just an ordinary rescue. It was an extraordinary march, an incredible display of the power of friendship between man and animal. These canines didn't just perform a task, they lived for each other. Their loyalty was not only demonstrated through their dedication to work, but also through the sacrifices and the love they showed in life and death moments. And Max was the embodiment of all these qualities. This rescue was not just a story about saving a life, but a vivid demonstration of courage and unwavering determination. Max and his teammates not only saved Jack's life, but also created a moment filled with emotion, intensity, and wonder that only loyal canines could make happen. The quiet of the winter forest was like a black veil, enveloping everything in a cold, deathly silence. The snow was falling so heavily that only faint white patches could be seen, as if every sign of life had been buried under the still white blanket. In this stillness, the only sounds were the soft footsteps of the canine German shepherds, silently moving through the sparse woods, the crunch of snow beneath their paws, and the bright eyes of Max, the lead dog. Max was no ordinary dog. He was the epitome of resilience, dedication, and unconditional loyalty. With his sharp eyes, Max seemed to see through every hidden mystery in the cold, desolate forest. As the canine unit sensed a shift in the atmosphere, when the surroundings became unusual, they immediately changed direction, moving deeper into the forest. Max led the way like a seasoned warrior, his muscular frame and unwavering eyes focused on their goal. It seemed as if everything had been prepared beforehand. All the dogs followed a plan that had been formed through their intense training. They were not just ordinary hunting dogs, but a meticulously trained unit capable of recognizing danger and carrying out their tasks with absolute precision. The steps of Max and his teammates showed no signs of hesitation or confusion. The dogs moved silently, without making any noise, but their preparation was flawless. Max wasn't a dog that barked at every person or sign. Instead, he focused on one goal: to find Jack, the forest ranger who lay motionless in a state of despair. Every step Max took was a critical decision. Each scent he picked up was a beacon of hope for Jack. Max seemed to sense the imminent danger and understood that time was running out. Every second was a challenge, a race against death. Jack Thompson, the experienced ranger, had been left in the deadly cold of winter, chained to an ancient tree, his body frozen and barely clinging to life. His breath had become shallow, his hands numb from being bound to the tree, and the bleeding wounds had drained much of his strength. Despite trying to stay conscious, the cold and loss of blood had nearly caused Jack to lose consciousness. He felt his body growing weaker and his mind fading into darkness. It seemed as though all hope had been extinguished and death was inevitable. But then, in the most desperate of moments when hope seemed all but gone, a miracle happened. Jack heard footsteps approaching, not the footsteps of humans, but the sound of paws scraping through the snow, the footsteps of the canines. Jack tried to open his eyes, and in his blurry vision, he saw a large figure, a peak covered in white snow with bright eyes full of determination. It was Max, the leader of the canine unit, a maid trained not only to fight, but also to sense and save humans in the most desperate of situations. Max did not bark. There was no sound from him. He simply stood still, his gaze fixed on Jack as if he understood that this was a life or death moment. Max moved closer, guided only by instinct and an unwavering loyalty. The other dogs began to act around Jack, moving with perfect coordination, with no panic or mistakes. One dog began sniffing, searching for any sign. It sniffed around the chain and immediately discovered the lock buried beneath the thick snow. Another dog quickly started digging to uncover more clues. Max, with his instincts, knew that this was the key to saving Jack. He did not bark, remaining silent, but in his bright eyes there was a determination that made all the other dogs understand that the mission must be completed. Jack, in his faint state, could only gaze at Max and realize that this dog was his last hope. Though his body ached, though the wounds and cold made him nearly lose consciousness, Max's gaze made him feel that there was something beyond survival waiting for him. Max continued to work tirelessly. He searched for the lock, and when he found the clue, he didn't hesitate. Max lunged forward, biting the chain and pulling with all his might, while the other canines kept moving without rest. This was not just the effort of one dog, but of an entire army prepared for a moment like this. When the lock was finally open, Max didn't leave. He remained firmly at Jack's side, as if protecting him from the unseen dangers. Suddenly, the sound of human footsteps came from afar, and the rescue team began approaching. The footsteps grew clearer, and within a few minutes, a team of rescuers arrived in time. Jack was rescued and pulled out of the freezing forest, while Max never left his side. Max, with minor injuries to his body, remained steadfast, never tiring, with one singular goal: to protect Jack until he was safely saved. When Jack regained consciousness in the rescue station, it felt as though he had returned from the brink of death. He looked at Max, his eyes filled with tears of gratitude. Max was not just a rescue squad, he was a loyal companion, a protector who had become an irreplaceable part of his life. Max had not only saved him with his precise actions, but also with the deep love and loyalty that no human could ever fully understand. This story is not just about a rescue, it is a lesson in loyalty, bravery, and the strength of the bond between humans and animals. The canines didn't just save Jack, they proved that sometimes the creatures we least expect can do the most unimaginable things, and in the most critical moments, it is they who truly save us. After being saved in a situation that seemed impossible to survive, Jack Thompson was not only rescued from the deadly cold of winter, but also witnessed a miracle that he could not explain in words. The bond between him and Max, the canine dog, was not just a simple rescue, but a profound and miraculous connection between man and animal. Though Jack was still weak and had not fully recovered, one thing was certain to him. Max, the large canine with thick fur, a scar on his eye, and sharp eyes like daggers, had saved his life. And even more astonishingly, Max was not just a rescue dog, but had become a companion, a lifeline, and a source of hope in Jack's life, in a situation he had never imagined. When Jack awoke in the rescue station, he felt a strange unfamiliarity surrounding him. The warm room, the steady beeping of the monitoring machines, the smell of antiseptic, and the familiar air of the caretakers. Everything was so different from the cold forest he had just experienced. But when his eyes drifted, he saw Max, the large dog with a determined gaze, always by his side like an irreplaceable friend. In that moment, Jack understood that nothing could sever the bond between them. Max was not just a rescue dog, he was the loyal friend who had never left his side throughout that perilous journey. Jack began to realize that during the time he was lying in the forest, almost in a state of despair, Max was always his only companion. Though Max could not speak, his deep gaze and unwavering eyes said it all. Max was not just a canine dog, he was a friend, a protector, the life, the only hope that Jack could cling to. Every time Jack felt like he was about to fade away in the horrific cold, when all hope seemed lost, Max appeared like a dim light, a sign of life. Other canines may have participated in the rescue, but it was Max who led the way, who kept Jack's faith alive in his weakest moments. This bond went beyond just physical rescue. Max was not just a dog carrying out a task. Max understood that in Jack's most desperate moments, he needed a friend, and Max became that friend. The understanding between Jack and Max was a miracle that only those who love animals could comprehend. In moments when Jack was close to losing all vitality, Max showed silent loyalty and boundless courage. It was not just a rescue, it was unconditional dedication. However, as Jack began to recover and stand on his feet again, he started to realize more clearly the significance of the bond between him and Max. After all they had been through together, Max was no longer just a companion in his work. He had become an indispensable part of Jack's life. Every time Jack looked into Max's deep eyes, he felt an indescribable warmth and unwavering loyalty. Max had protected him not only with his powerful body, but also with a loyal heart and steadfast determination that no one could ever predict. One day, as Jack and Max were patrolling together, an unexpected event occurred. While advancing into a deeper area of the forest, Max suddenly stopped and began sniffing around. Jack immediately sensed that something was wrong. Max, without hesitation, moved with great purpose. He was not searching for the scent of a poacher or a wild animal, but for a different kind of danger, something hidden. Max, as a specially trained dog, seemed to sense the danger that his handler could not perceive. Suddenly, gunshots rang out from a distance. Jack immediately realized that they were under attack. A group of people emerged from the darkness of the forest, armed and threatening. Jack was caught off guard, but Max already knew what was coming. Max didn't rush into attack. Instead, he stood in front of Jack, protecting him from every direction. Max bristled, his fur standing on end, and in that moment, Jack saw him as a fierce warrior, ready to sacrifice himself for his friend. The dog was not afraid, and that was a huge encouragement to Jack. There was no time to think, but Max had shown him something important. Courage doesn't only lie in physical strength, but also in perseverance, in the willingness to protect those you care about to the end. When facing the enemy, Max did not retreat. The other canines did not stand still either. They began to act according to their plan, coordinating with each other like a seasoned army. Jack could only stand beside Max, leaning on him, seeking comfort and protection. In a tense showdown, Max and the other canines protected Jack until the very last moment. This was not only a victory of physical strength, but also the triumph of friendship, loyalty, and unconditional protection. That battle, though fierce, once again proved the unbreakable strength of the bond between Jack and Max. After the fight, when everything had calmed down, Jack sat beside Max, gently patting him like a close friend, like a teammate. No words could fully express the emotions in his heart. Max had saved his life once more, and this time, not just in a life or death situation, but in a moment of understanding and deep connection between man and animal. Max's saving of Jack was not just a physical act. It was a journey of trust, loyalty, and unconditional friendship. With each step, each action, Max was not only the friend who saved Jack, but also the one who understood, the loyal protector, the companion who would never abandon him. The bond between Jack and Max was inseparable, unbreakable, and would forever remain an essential part of both their lives. After being saved from what seemed like an impossible situation, Jack Thompson thought his life would return to normal. However, peace was short-lived, and something far worse was lurking ahead. An even darker secret awaited him, an even larger conspiracy involving the very people he had once trusted. After being rescued, Jack found himself not only facing physical pain, but also betrayal from those he had considered his comrades. As Jack gradually recovered, he began to realize that what had happened in the forest was not a random event. The attackers, those who had left him to die in the freezing cold, were not just criminals trying to seize the resources of the reserve. After his rescue, Jack uncovered a series of strange events he couldn't explain. These unsettling details not only confused him, but also led him to realize that there was a hidden truth within the heart of his ranger station. When he started investigating, Jack noticed something unusual. The people who attacked him, those who had tried to kill him by chaining him to a tree in the remote forest, had an unnerving familiarity. They weren't ordinary poachers or outsiders looking to infiltrate the reserve. These individuals had detailed knowledge of unpatrolled areas of the forest, and they knew exactly where they could act without being detected. Jack even discovered that these people might have gotten information directly from within the ranger station. Less than a week after his rescue, Jack decided he had to uncover the truth. He could no longer live in the shadow of betrayal. A tense confrontation was about to unfold, and this time it wasn't just enemies in the forest, but also traitors within his own ranks. Max, the loyal K9, was always by Jack's side like a companion he could never be without, and Max could feel the tension in the air. Max became an indispensable part of Jack's investigation, like a constant, unwavering partner, a protector, and the only one Jack could trust. In the midst of this tense investigation, Jack gradually discovered that someone within the ranger station, a person he had once trusted as a reliable teammate, was the one who had betrayed him. Sheriff Eric Matthews, the head of the ranger force, was a seasoned, strong man, the ideal role model in Jack's eyes. But now the truth was slowly emerging, and Jack could hardly believe what he was uncovering. Matthews had colluded with the criminals to assist in seizing the reserve's resources. They had used their authority and inside information from the ranger station to carry out illegal activities without anyone knowing. This revelation hit Jack like a shockwave. The man he had once called a friend, a comrade, was the one who had betrayed him and left him in a life-threatening situation in the forest. The betrayal hurt Jack deeply and pushed him to a point where he felt there was no turning back. His mind spun, and the sense of being deceived almost shattered his trust in everyone. But one thing Jack never doubted was Max's loyalty. The canine dog, without words, had proven that its friendship and loyalty were eternal. When Jack decided to confront Matthews and expose the truth, an unavoidable showdown ensued. The ranger station, where Jack had devoted so many years, had now become a place filled with dark secrets. Jack knew he had to face Matthews, but he couldn't do it alone. Max, with his bright eyes and powerful body, was the only teammate Jack could trust at that moment. One night, when Matthews was absent from the ranger station, Jack and Max decided to approach the sheriff's office to find more evidence of his betrayal. However, as they got closer, a sense of unease filled the air. Jack could feel the threat, and though he was not easily frightened, there was something unsettling in that moment. Max also stopped, his ears perked, his eyes fixed ahead, as though sensing something wrong. As they entered Matthew's office, Jack began searching for documents that might prove Matthew's betrayal. But just as he opened a drawer, a loud noise rang out. Matthews had returned, and this time he wasn't alone. Matthews, accompanied by a group of henchmen, was ready to confront Jack. They had prepared for a no-mercy showdown. With no time left to hesitate, Jack was ready to fight for the truth and justice. Max, eyes fixed firmly on Matthews, stepped forward. He wasn't just a rescue dog. He was the companion, the warrior, and the last defender in this battle. With unshakable strength and determination, Max lunged forward, attacking with precision, holding off the attackers and protecting Jack at all costs. The intense confrontation took place right inside the ranger station's office. Gunshots rang out, and the air became heavy with tension and anxiety. Jack and Max had to face the betrayal of the one person they had trusted. But with courage and unwavering loyalty, Max and Jack proved that justice would prevail. The traitors, no matter how powerful, could not stand against the strength of loyalty and true friendship. When Matthews and his accomplices were finally apprehended, Jack stood in the middle of the room, no longer feeling despair. He looked at Max, his loyal companion who had always been by his side during the most harrowing moments. Despite the victory, one thing Jack understood. Betrayal was a wound that could never fully heal, but true loyalty and friendship would always overcome any trial. When Jack Thompson awoke in the rescue station, the warmth of the room and the steady beeping of the monitoring machines made him feel as though he had just returned from the brink of death. In truth, in the moments before, he had nearly given up, falling into a deep pit with no way out. He had fought against the bone-chilling cold of winter, struggling with his wounds in utter despair. But in that dark moment, it was Max, the loyal, powerful canine dog, who never left his side for a second, that gave him the strength to continue surviving. As the light of the rescue station shone in his eyes, Jack still felt a sharp pain throughout his body, but the only thing he truly sensed was the presence of Max beside him. Max was always there, with his sharp eyes and snow-covered fur, a loyal companion who had never abandoned him. Every time Jack looked into Max's bright eyes, he saw something incredibly special, something words could not describe. Max was not just a canine dog. He was the only friend, the protector, the light in Jack's darkness. But the story between Jack and Max did not end with a single rescue. Their journey was not just about survival, but about an unbreakable connection between man and animal, between two souls with the same goal: to protect one another to the end. Max did not save Jack once, but throughout every perilous moment. When all hope seemed lost, Max remained steadfast, never retreating, never fearing the challenges they faced. It was Max's absolute loyalty that helped Jack realize that in the hardest times, only true friendship and loyalty could save a man. A week after his rescue, as Jack was gradually recovering at the rescue station, he was able to go outside and resume his work protecting the reserve he had devoted his life to. But there was one thing Jack could not anticipate. Everything had changed. Strange events began to occur, and dangers kept appearing during moments that seemed calm. And in these moments, Max remained the only friend, always standing by his side, never complaining. During one patrol near the deep forest, as Jack and Max moved along desolate paths, the tension in the air suddenly grew. Max's eyes gleamed, no longer calm as usual. He began sniffing around, and Jack immediately realized something was wrong. Signals in the air were invisible to the eye, but Max, with the keen instincts of a trained canine dog, could sense a change in the atmosphere. Jack stopped, gripping his gun at his side, his heart heavy with concern. In the distance, a shadow appeared. Max's loyalty was not just about unconditional protection, but also about an extraordinary understanding of his friend. Max did not just stand still. He moved around Jack, ready to fight, protecting him from all sides. To Jack, Max was not just a rescued dog. He was a friend, a warrior, and the only one he could trust in this dangerous moment. Suddenly, a noise rang out from afar, followed by footsteps approaching. Jack immediately recognized that these were not the footsteps of friends, but of strangers. These people could be criminals, the same ones who had left traces in the forest before. With no time to prepare, Jack could only tighten his grip on his gun and look at Max, his loyal companion who had always been by his side. Max looked at him with unwavering determination. A bark rang out, and Max lunged forward without hesitation, fiercely protecting his owner. The confrontation happened in an instant. The attackers never expected to face a courageous canine like Max. With his powerful strength and agility, Max charged at the intruders like a storm. His swift jumps, precise bites left the attackers unable to react. Everything happened so quickly. Jack, while facing the intruders, realized that he was no longer alone. Max had protected him from the first moment, and now Max was the one keeping hope alive for him. When everything settled, Jack looked at Max, still in disbelief at what he had just witnessed. Max was not just a rescue dog. He was the loyal companion who had kept him alive through moments of life and death. They had fought together, stood firm together in the face of danger, and in all those trials, nothing could break their bond. Every time Jack looked into Max's brave eyes, he felt an invisible strength protecting him, assuring him that no matter how difficult the challenges, they could overcome them. Later that evening, as they sat by the fire in the quiet forest, Jack felt a strange sense of peace. Max lay beside him, his eyes still sharp but filled with tranquility. It seemed that, in this moment, the world around them had fallen silent, leaving only the sound of the crackling fire and the steady breathing of Max. Jack smiled, gently stroking Max's thick fur, feeling the warmth of his dog. He knew that no matter what dangers lay ahead, he would never be alone. Max was not just a rescue dog. He was a friend, a warrior, and the sole guardian in Jack's life. The bond between them was not simply about rescue or protection. It was a connection between two souls, an unbreakable, irreplaceable link. Max had proven that loyalty and courage are not only qualities found in humans, but also an essential part of a loyal animal. And to Jack, Max was not just a friend. He was everything he could trust in a world filled with danger. After all the unexpected and painful events that Jack Thompson and Max had experienced together, one thing became clearer than ever. Loyalty and courage are two inseparable qualities that not only help people overcome challenges they thought impossible to conquer, but also create miracles in situations where there seems to be no way out. The story of Jack and Max is not just about survival. It is proof that when everything around us falls apart, when all hope seems to have been extinguished, there are still miraculous sparks that cannot be explained, existing in what seems impossible. It was Max's actions, the tireless, fearless, and ever-loyal canine dog, that not only saved Jack from danger, but also helped him rediscover faith in life, friendship, and himself. When Max first appeared in the story, no one imagined that a dog could bring such a profound change. But when Jack's life was threatened, and he was left in the deep forest alone with only the freezing cold and despair, Max proved that the loyalty of a silent creature could change a fate. Max was not just a rescue dog, but the only friend in that life or death moment, the loyal companion who never left Jack's side. Max's loyalty was not just shown in simple situations, but in moments of life and death, when Jack had nearly lost all hope. When Jack was chained to a tree in utter despair, feeling his body grow weaker and weaker, Max never left him. Instead, this canine dog led the way, searching and rescuing Jack. Every step Max took was unimaginable bravery, knowing that one mistake could mean the death of the friend it was bound to protect. But Max's courage didn't come just from physical strength. It also came from something only true friends can understand: perseverance, determination, and selfless sacrifice. When Max sensed Jack was in danger, it didn't hesitate. It immediately acted to protect him, no matter the challenges or hardships they faced. And it was in these moments that Max not only saved Jack's life, but also taught him a priceless lesson about loyalty, sacrifice, and friendship. As Jack's life slowly returned to normal after being rescued, the questions he had about Max became clearer. This canine dog was not just a rescue tool or a companion in his work. It had become an indispensable part of Jack's life. The bond between Jack and Max was inseparable, as if they had shared a life, a belief, and a purpose. Max was not just a dog, but the only loyal friend Jack could trust in his darkest moments. Sometimes we think that only humans can form deep and meaningful relationships, but the story between Jack and Max proved that animals, with their boundless loyalty, can also create incredible connections. Max rose above everything, not only in saving Jack's life, but also in becoming an irreplaceable friend in his life. Thus, when Jack looked at Max, he didn't just see a rescue dog, but a true friend, a true companion. Not only did Max save Jack's life, but he also brought Jack a great lesson in loyalty and courage. Max's loyalty was not something easily achieved. It was built over years of training and moments of shared hardships. Every time Max rushed into danger to protect Jack, it wasn't just fulfilling a task. It was proving that loyalty is not something that can be measured by action, but by deep affection and unconditional dedication. In the moments when Jack thought he couldn't go on, Max was the one who saved him, the only light in the darkness of death. The story of Max and Jack is also a reminder that in life, we can never predict what will happen, but one thing is certain. Only when we have true friends by our side can we overcome all difficulties and challenges. These friends, whether human or animal, are the ones who will always be with us, whether in moments of happiness or pain, ready to sacrifice for us without any calculation. After all the hardships and life or death confrontations, Jack finally understood that the values he had were not just life itself, but also friendship, loyalty, and courage. What Max had done was not just a rescue, but a confirmation that friendship, loyalty, and courage could change a human's fate. And in a world filled with challenges, when humans and animals appreciate and protect each other, miracles will always happen. Max not only saved Jack once, but helped him regain faith in life, in friends, and most importantly, in himself. No matter what happens in the future, Jack knew that he would never be alone, because Max, with his absolute loyalty, would always be by his side, ready to protect and fight for him. And with Max, Jack understood that in the darkest moments, friendship would be the shining light to guide the way, and loyalty would be the greatest strength to help a person overcome any challenge.